Hi everyone. Today we are going to be learning about photosynthesis. We'll be doing a quick overview and going over a few important things that you should know. So photosynthesis is paired with cell respiration, and the reason why is because they are interrelated. If you look up here, CO2 is found in the air, as you probably already know. And the CO2 in the air is actually going to become part of plants, right? The process of photosynthesis will take the carbon dioxide in the air and it's going to build leaves and stems and the trunks and fruits and roots out of the CO2. So we're taking CO2 from the air and it's becoming part of plants. Then animals will eat the plants, and then plants and animals will all undergo cell respiration and return CO2 back to the air. So these two processes are basically going to be opposites of one another, and they are closely interrelated. As a reminder, autotrophs and heterotrophs are different organisms. Autotrophs are organisms that undergo photosynthesis. That means they make their own sugar they cannot eat. Autotrophs still undergo cellular respiration. Heterotrophs can't photosynthesize. Instead, a heterotroph has to eat other organisms to get sugar and other food. But heterotrophs also undergo cell respiration. So remember, cell respiration is the process of making ATP from sugar, and photosynthesis is the process of making sugar. All right, so cell respiration uses oxygen and sugar to make CO2 as a waste product. And photosynthesis is going to use CO2 to make sugar and oxygen. What do you notice is the relationship between those two explanations? Those two explanations are opposites of one another. So cell respiration, photosynthesis doing opposite things. This is why we're not going to run out of oxygen or CO2, because we have this interplay between the two processes. So an autotroph uses energy from sunlight to make chemical energy. There are lots of different types of autotrophs. A fern is a plant. Cyanobacteria are photosynthetic bacteria. You can see them in the picture on the right. Kelp found in the sea. All of these things convert light into chemical potential energy, which CPE is just food. A heterotroph, on the other hand, gets energy from eating, from the digestive system. The organelle we're going to be talking about with photosynthesis is the chloroplast. And you should know the basic parts of a chloroplast. There is an outer membrane and then an inner membrane. And then this space in the middle of the chloroplast is called the stroma. And each chloroplast is made up of these stacks of little discs called thylakoids. A thylakoid is a little disc, and the entire stack of discs is called a grana. So that is a chloroplast. So just to give you an idea of how big all these things are, this is a leaf. All right, now if we take a look at the thickness of the leaf, right, so the flat part of the leaf, and we were to take a cross section of the thickness of a leaf, it would look like this. There would be a few layers of cells there. And if we focus on one of the cells in the mesophyll contains the cells that are green. It would look like this. You can see all of the chloroplasts. You can see the cell membrane and the cell wall. A chloroplast, if we zoom in, looks like that. And if we zoom into the chloroplast, we can see the two membranes and the grana and each thylakoid and the stroma filling up the space. So a chloroplast is smaller than a cell, and a cell is smaller than a leaf. The job of a chloroplast is to absorb light, and what it does is it absorbs the wavelengths of light, but not green. So chlorophyll is the pigment in a chloroplast. So this is the name of the actual chemical, the pigment in a chloroplast. And chlorophyll looks green Because if we go back for a minute, the chlorophyll is here. The chlorophyll is reflecting green light, and that reflects back to your eyes, so that is what you see. The other pigments, the other wavelengths of light are absorbed by the chlorophyll, so you do not see them. So anytime you're seeing a color, that color is being reflected at you, and the other colors are being absorbed. So chlorophyll absorbs all but green light. There are other pigments sometimes in plants. We're going to focus on chlorophyll, but there are carotenoids and xanthophylls and anthocyanins that may absorb and reflect other colors as well. All right. The equation for photosynthesis is down here. You should make sure that you've written that down. It's carbon dioxide from the air plus water, right? Think about it. Plants need all these things, right? Do plants need CO2? They sure do. Do plants need water? We know they do. And plants also need light. And plants make sugar, and they release as a byproduct oxygen. So carbon dioxide in, it enters the leaves, sunlight enters the leaves, water enters through the roots, and the plant is going to make sugar, which will be sent out and around the plant, as well as water, as well as oxygen. The water sometimes evaporates out of the leaf, but photosynthesis is not making water. But photosynthesis is making oxygen. All right. Photosynthesis is made up of two parts. It is not like cell respiration where there's three parts. There's only two. There's the light-dependent reaction, sometimes just called the light reactions. The light reactions are over here. I'm circling them now. And then there's the light-independent reactions, sometimes called the Calvin cycle. The Calvin cycle is over here. This is the Calvin cycle. Okay. So what do you need to know? You should know the inputs and the outputs for each part of photosynthesis. So the light-dependent reactions require light, and they require water. All right. And what's going to happen is the light reactions are, as a result, they're going to make oxygen. Oxygen is a byproduct. But the important part of the light reactions is that the light reactions will make these two things. They will make ATP and NADPH. NADPH, what does that seem similar to that you learned about in cell respiration? You may recognize that as being a very similar acronym to NADH. NADPH does something very similar to NADH, except it is slightly different because it is in a chloroplast and not a cell that's undergoing cell respiration. So it is a slightly different enzyme. It still does the same thing. It's an electron carrier. So the point of the light reactions convert the energy of light into ATP and NADPH. All right. Now our second part is the Calvin cycle. So the Calvin cycle is where we take CO2 and we build all these CO2 molecules into sugar. All right. Well, how are we going to do that? We need some energy. Where are we getting energy from? Well, the energy is going to come from the light reactions, right? The light reactions are going to give us ATP, and the light reactions are going to give us energetic electrons. And those two things are going to run the Calvin cycle, which allows the carbon dioxide to be built into sugar. And we're going to look into a bit more detail into this overview of the light reactions and the Calvin cycle next. If you have any questions, please let me know.